Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us via Zoom today, and congratulations on your admittance to HWS. We're so excited to have you on the call. Today, we will be discussing the Center for Community Engagement and Service Learning, or as we say on campus, CECL. Before we get started, though, I'd like everyone to please keep your microphones on mute. The session is being recorded for more students to watch at a later date, and we would like to limit any extra noise as much as possible. So thank you. And any questions that you have can be submitted via the chat feature, and we will answer them later in the session. But to begin, I'll introduce myself. My name is Carling Landash. I'm a senior from Sarasota, Florida. As one of the head O'Loughlin Ambassador tour guides, I am very happy to be here today to welcome you. I'm majoring in economics and international relations, and I'm also minoring in Latin American studies. I did study abroad in Mendoza, Argentina, my sophomore fall. In addition to that, on campus, I am a Centennial Scholar who's completed the HWS Elite Certificate Program and a Cohen Fellow at the Centennial Center for Leadership, Entrepreneurship, and Innovation. I am also a member of the Public Leadership Education Network. It is a public policy group on campus. I am also the William Smith Senior Class President. But in addition to working at admissions, I work for the Center of Global Education, Student Activities, and the Office of Advancement. I'm also a member of the Laurel Society and the High Timi Honor Societies. But in terms of job experience, I've interned for Education for the Children, a nonprofit in Guatemala, House of Representatives in Washington, D.C., and currently virtually interning at a consulting firm in Santiago, Chile, virtually. But in terms of the Center for Community Engagement Service Learning, I am the senior civic leader, so I do help out Katie quite a bit. I'm also a member of HWS Votes. I have participated in Summer of Service. It's an internship here in Geneva during the summer. I've worked as a America Reads tutor coordinator. I've also worked with Geneva Heroes, Rotaract. I volunteered with Community Sale, the Community Lunch Program, and Day of Service. So I love CECL. But I am here today with Katie Flowers, who's the director of the Center for Community Engagement and Service Learning, and Jonathan, my friend here. Jonathan Garcia, please do you mind introducing yourself?
Welcome, everyone. I'm Jonathan Garcia. I'm a sophomore from Pasadena, California, and a member of the Posse program here on campus. I am majoring in mathematics and computer science, and I'm enrolled in the teacher education program. I was recently awarded the Asia Network Fellows that will allow me to study in Tokyo, Japan. Through the award, I will go to Japan with 2 other students and our academic advisor for the project, Associate Professor of History and Asia Studies, Lisa Yoshikawa. In preparation, I am studying the Japanese language and completing an independent study this semester. I am studying how the Japanese Tourist Travel Bureau overcame the 1923 earthquake, the 1944 and 45 fire bombings, and the reshaping of the area for the 1940s, 1964, and 2020 Olympics. One of my best moments of weekly joy comes from tutoring I do with 4th and 5th grade students at the Boys and Girls Club in Geneva. I'm one of the 100 HWS Tutor Corps members that participate in twice a week tutoring now via Zoom. Usually we would go to the Boys and Girls Club, and I help students with mathematics, reading, and writing. I'm also a member of the Hobart cross country team, and I work with multiple departments on campus. I am part of several clubs. Last year, I took part in the Great Cycle Challenge, a fundraiser for children's cancer research, and in which I was able to bike 600 miles and raise $3,525. I am considering a career in education, but I am also considering becoming a mathematics professor. I work a lot with Katie, and I'd like to ask for a discussion to get started. Katie, to get us started, can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself and your work at HWS Hobart?
Sure, happy to have a small group here and glad to keep it informal too. So if you have questions, please let me know. Pop it in the chat. And if you have to step aside, I know sometimes busy high school students, you guys are multitasking, and so I understand where you guys are coming from. But as I mentioned, I'm from New Hampshire, but I've been here 15 years. When Kate was a student, now she's a colleague in admissions. And I really love working with students. I love connecting them with the Geneva community. It's a phenomenal, uniquely urban community, 13,000, seems like a small number, but it's a very walkable city. So students are always, popping back and forth to campus. I served a year with AmeriCorps after college. Sometimes people refer to AmeriCorps as domestic Peace Corps. So rather than 2 years overseas, it's 1 year domestically. And I'm always glad to talk to students about AmeriCorps and Peace Corps. I'm also proud because HWS is one of only 250 schools that matches AmeriCorps awards for the summer. So if you wanted to do a summer internship in West Virginia, in New Hampshire, in Boston, you get a stipend and then it would get matched towards tuition next year. So I like that, but I also like what it stands for. It means we want students who are coming to campus, thinking about critical issues in the environment, public policy, healthcare, always, but especially as our globe crawls out of the impacts of our devastating pandemic that we've all navigated through. So it's just an honor really to work with students as you guys navigate classwork and learn about the community and how those two things, of course, are often seamless. So I don't know about you, but when I hear about Jonathan and Carling, I feel like I must have been a slacker in college and I thought it was pretty busy. I don't know when you two sleep. So thank you for all that you do for our campus and community.
Great, thank you so much, Katie. I really appreciate that. So a common fact, especially through admissions, is that we have about 100% of our students participate in service at HWS beginning their first year. Can you explain that figure a little further?
Sure. So community engagement, you probably see it on our admissions, brochures and website, and it's far more than lives of consequence. It's far more than a tagline for us. And I think to reiterate that importance, it's literally the first group activity that you do during orientation. So we want folks to say, like, campus is beautiful and spend time here, but Geneva is beautiful and this is your community. So you got to learn about your community, you got to contribute, and it's, not service for, it's service with, because our community members at the Boys and Girls Club, at the YMCA, at the lunch program, we're learning so much from them. So I often refer to them as co-educators, because the lessons and the learning, are sometimes as impactful as the data that you're reviewing for stats classes. So orientation, learn about the Geneva community, day one, everyone does it. And then we like to think of that as like a gateway so that you can walk through it and learn about other ways to get involved. You'll be talking with your orientation members like Carling and Jonathan, probably one of the things that they didn't list that they do. And they will tell you about, yes, if you're interested in this, here's how you connect here. Or, are you interested in public policy? Let me tell you about HWS Votes. Even on an off presidential year next year, they already have things planned. They're always cooking. Follow them on HWS Instagram if you're interested. Very impressive footprint. But you can do it short-term projects like days of service. We have one on April 17th. Longer term, like Big Brothers, Big Sisters, 1 hour a week. Jonathan and Carling mentioned tutoring, very popular. We have 100 positions a year where you could tutor a local child. And I'm a mom of a 13-year-old, and when I encourage her to read, no thanks. But when a cool college kid says, oh, you know what, maybe if you try reading with this strategy, or how's homework going, they hear it in a very different way, as you can imagine. So those are paid positions, $12.50 an hour, so not too bad. And we were able to pivot this year and have them, all of that tutoring occur virtually. So the footprint went a little bit farther than just the Geneva zip code, which was exciting. But yes, day one orientation, learn about our community, and then keep moving.
Katie, what are some other ways that first-year students can get involved and begin their journey to civic engagement?
Awesome. And Susha and Annabelle too, if you have specific questions, I'm happy to follow up too, but we have a lot of student clubs like Habitat for Humanity. Rotaract is connected to the Rotary Club. It's a national, actually international organization. Days of Service is technically a club, and you could also take a service learning class. Have you guys taken a service learning class in high school yet? Annabelle or Susha, not yet. I know Carling and Jonathan have probably had classes here where you take community service. So you're learning about food security, you know, because you're directly making meals for 80 people at the church down the street. But then you're unpacking that conceptually in a class on environmental studies when maybe you're thinking about, you know, the urban footprint of, you know, upstate farming. And people might be surprised to know that we have some food challenges in our small community because we are surrounded by a lot of farmland, but we have poverty in our community as well. I mentioned it's like a microcosm of a larger city. So service learning is when you do direct service, but you unpack it in a class. So Jonathan and Carling, what classes did you take? Do you remember service learning wise? Like econ of caring or intro to soc?
I took introduction to sociology with Jack Harris, and yes.
He's a good guy, yep. So there are no shortage of ways to get involved, and I just wanted to quickly show you guys our webpage so that if you wanted to follow up later and learn a little bit more, hws.edu, and then the quick links or the drop-down box, and then you just go to community service. And it'll bring you right to our page. So this was a really fun group project from orientation. We packed 60,000 meals and sent to overseas in partnership with Stop Hunger Now. We built a playground as another large-scale service project. But this really digs into some of the more specific efforts we have. Carling mentioned the community sale. We work really hard to make sure that all items donated by students at the end of the year find another use. We're very environmentally conscious. And so they are upcycled or donated or sold. And so this is a fun event at the local recreation center. It's where both of our ice hockey teams practice. This year, we're just directly donating because we can't have a large scale event. And if you've ever seen shopping on Black Friday, you know that people love a deal. And that's kind of what the community sale is all about. But blood drive, we've been able to have that during the pandemic, certainly super important because a lot of the people that traditionally donate blood are retirees, which we had wanted them to stay home, of course. So college students were an important part of that effort. So too many to go into specifically, but lots of ways to get involved, lots of ways for students after 4 years. They really think of Geneva as their home because it is. And they run into their community partners at Wegmans. I don't know if there's Wegmans in New Hampshire or West Virginia, but it's a cult following of a grocery store. I had never heard of it before I moved here either, but whew, very popular. And so when you start running into people that you know from off campus in this new college community, it's just makes you realize you are a Geneva community member in addition to being an HWS student. It's really, you know, both. So those are just a few options, but Annabelle and Susha, I don't know if you do you have specific things in high school that you're involved with that you would be interested to have some feedback on? We can continue to share some additional examples and keep going, but I also want you to get out of it maybe it's something that you need information about.
I was just wondering how Jonathan and Carling, how you guys both like fit it into your schedule and maybe how many hours a week you devote to this or
Great question.
clubs.
Yeah, I can get started. I honestly didn't really get super involved besides working tutoring for part of my federal work study until really like halfway through my sophomore year. I actually, I don't know if you remember this, Katie, but I think we Skyped when I was in Argentina because I was looking forward. I don't know if you remember that. It was fall of 2018. I Skyped in just to talk with you, or I talked to Jeremy. I talked to someone in the office of ways to get involved because it was something I wanted to really get involved in. And honestly, there are so many different opportunities that Katie explained. That I always like to say there's literally service opportunities for everyone. No matter how much time you have, if you're playing a sport, you can devote, a Saturday afternoon with your team to workday of service. Maybe you have Thursdays at lunch free, you're not in a course, you can go work at our community lunch program at one of the local churches. You could join a club that meets every other Tuesday night at 7 p.m. So it's really great because you're able to choose what community service really interests you, but also what fits your schedule. Obviously, I take on a lot, and I'm sure Jonathan can agree that we sometimes overbook ourselves. And that's just something of who I am. And by no means do you need to as well. I've had to learn how to say no to things, which has been a little bit difficult. But I tried a bunch of different things with Cecil and kind of saw what fit best for my schedule and my interests. And I've been able to really get to know Cecil, as the senior civic leader and working with a bunch of different clubs and organizations. And I've really enjoyed it just because I've been able to really connect with a lot of different people on campus. And I'm not sure if this is right, Jonathan, but I know we met through Cecil and we've been able to connect. And I've been able to foster some friendships through that as well. So managing my time is definitely difficult. There's a lot of, sleepless nights, but that's just who I am. Please get sleep is my big recommendation for college, but it's really just finding what's interesting to you, making new friends, sticking with it, committing with it if you're able to. But that's my little spiel. Jonathan, do you have any tips?
I like how you said like taking care of yourself first, like with sleep especially. I feel like definitely like that I'm sure you've heard of the airplane quote where the oxygen mask comes down and you have to put it on before you help someone else put theirs on. I feel like that's very important, and it relates to this because before you like go out to help your community, you want to make sure that you're like safe and sound with your academics, your sleep, your I think school first, and then helping others. Like you, Harling said, there's many opportunities to get what you're interested in helping. So like the biking challenge that I did, that was something that's like something national that happens, but it's something that the school has never done, or that I love bicycling, and I go cycling by myself every time I can, and that's just one way I got to like do something that I like, plus help someone else. So I feel like that is how I weave my like what I like to do with the opportunities of helping my community. And I also use Google Calendar just logistically. I feel like it helps a lot with scheduling. And here on campus, a lot of people like to use Outlook. I know Katie is a big fan of the Outlook calendar. I personally use Google because it's easier in terms of using a mobile device and being able to like set reminders and have attachments from Google Documents and drives and pictures and everything. Yeah. Any specific questions that you may have, like about any certain things mentioned?
I can share a little bit more about alternative spring break trips too, but feel free to interject if you have questions. Obviously, last year was an anomaly, but we had service trips to North Carolina, Virginia, not West Virginia, although I did go to West Virginia for a service trip in college as a side note, and Guatemala. Happily, we have $12,000 of banked airline credit for 2 years, so one more year. So if you come here, maybe you want to go to Guatemala. The student government was really supportive of the students wanting to go, which was great. And so we're glad to have that opportunity for next year. But we also have a local site because we want to make sure that students are contributing. You know, a lot of times I talk to students, maybe you know, spring semester of their freshman year, and they're like, I can't believe how busy I've been, and I've been meaning to do something. But like Jonathan and Carling were saying, just, you know, it's good to focus on your academics, transition in. But then sometimes the spring break is a good option because that's a confined amount of time. Great way to get to know other students. Nothing like a road trip for 12 hours, 14 in my case, because I might have gotten lost, but that's fine. So that's a fun thing to do. I suggest it, you know, because it's immersive, and any time that you can contribute in a significant amount of time is of course the ideal. But busy students, you know, an hour or so a month, that's great too. We partner with our leadership center. It's called the Centennial Center, and they have a HWS Leads certificate, which I suggest, and I think it's a phenomenal program. We talk a lot about community leadership. We actually have a session tonight with members of our Hobart fraternities and a Williamsmith sorority to talk about community leadership and how that's integrated into their outreach efforts. But part of the HWS Leads program is working with a local nonprofit organization on an advisory board. So when I was your age, I wasn't thinking about how boards ran, you know, that HWS, as all colleges, have trustees that, you know, oversee the fiscal management and the oversight of our college. And so nonprofit boards have a similar profile. And so how great for students to serve at the Boys and Girls Club board, serve on St. Peter's Arts Academy, and learn from community members in the context of their HWS Lead Certificate program. So in the same way, service learning, we integrate with coursework. HWS Leads integrating with leadership, because of course community is a broad concept, and so we you know, there's lots of ways to view it. We don't have a definition that we want you to memorize and say, like, this is what it means to be an engaged citizen, because it's totally different for everybody. Right now, as a mom, that means, you know, soccer coach, lacrosse coach, with my free time, so that I can spend time with my child and help other kids. But 5-10 years from now, it'll look different. And so we want to encourage our students to be aware of what's going on in the world, and also sensitive to the reality that we are very fortunate to receive this phenomenal education, have access to these incredible opportunities and resources and learning. And with that, of course, comes, you know, an awareness, a sensitivity of our privilege and obligation to contribute in ways that are sought, and not like, you know, parachute in. This is what I think would be great. It's like, you know, we are members of this community. We're learning together. And so that's, you know, of the things that we strive to do. We also cultivated a huge list of virtual volunteer opportunities. I'll share our Instagram page. And of course, a student made a link tree for me because they keep me relevant. And on the link tree, you can see our virtual volunteer list, but so many things to do. So, you know, this summer when, you know, we're all still coming out. I know the ages are different for who can get vaccinated when, but there's a lot of things that we can do virtually. Write a prisoner, review poetry, you know, a birthday party cards for kids in hospitals. You can get a cheek swab and be tested to see if you could be a bone marrow donor. There are tons and tons of ways to contribute with your time and talent. And so again, that was just kind of like in the past year, who would have guessed I'd be talking about virtual volunteering? But that's something that certainly we have learned to lean into. Should I talk about community-based research projects next, or Carling, what kind of things are on your mind?
Yeah, no, I think that would be a great last point. If anyone has any questions, please put them in the chat or let us know. But I think community-based research is probably a great cultivating last point.
Great. Well, so we talked a little bit about service learning, and that's one of your 4 classes. And then as a junior or senior, if you have learned about an issue, maybe cultivated an interest in high school, followed it up in college, and you really want to dig deep into maybe healthcare policy for, farm workers, or, water quality and how that impacts the economy, then you could take an independent research project, essentially. So it would count as one of your 4 classes. If it works with the community, it would be, we call it a community-based research project, but it's basically experiential learning. You'd have an academic advisor and you'd have a community partner to support that learning. So examples that we have this semester, Sarah is working with the Geneva Boosters Club. She's a Williamsworth senior. She wants to be a teacher. She'll actually be here next year for the Masters of Arts in Teaching program, the MAT program. And realizing that youth sports sometimes has transitioned into like a little bit of a pay to play kind of situation. And, how do we remove barriers to encourage kids to play sports if they, if equipment can be expensive, ice hockey, skiing, lacrosse, big sports up here, but that could be a barrier. But maybe other barriers, coaching, transportation to practices. So she, as a future teacher, she appreciates she's also a rower, so she appreciates the role that sports have played in her life. And she's collected data. She's gone through the institutional review board. She'll be presenting her poster at the senior symposium. So it's a really great chance for her to collect data, present it to community stakeholders at the Booster Club. Another last example I'll share with you is, I'm pumped about it because I think we can continue it. Like with virtual tutoring, some parts of that are pretty good for kids who might like that more than in person, or if they're sick, maybe they would want a virtual tutor. So we'll have to figure that out. But Wayne County is a county north of here, very, very rural, probably more apple orchards than people, I'm sure. And so it's like an hour away. And you guys know how these 2 busy college kids are. So to take an hour to drive somewhere, to work with a rural high school for an hour and drive back, it's hard to find 3 hours in a day. But all of a sudden, Zoom removed some transportation barriers. So we partner with 4 high schools in Wayne County, 1 next door in Seneca County. And we have 3 students who are leveraging their expertise with the college admissions process, of which you guys have expertise in now. Like, you probably wish you didn't know what FAFSA stood for. You probably wish that you didn't have to archive recommendations and worry about timelines and all that stuff, but and then how valuable that skill set is for a freshman, sophomore, junior, a first generation student in a rural community. In Wayne County, there's no higher education partners up there. So we're as close as I get, and we're an hour away. So that is something that Edie Falk, who is awesome, just accepted a position with City Year Buffalo, and Amelia Brush, another awesome rock star. I know she'll get snapped up by someplace. She's one of your kids, Kate. And they are laying the groundwork. With Zahir also, thank God he's not graduating. He's here next year. And we'll keep doing this project because it's not one and done, even when the pandemic's over. And so it's a way for them to connect their passion for the community with some academic research about how best to support college students during this important transition. And that is a long story version of community-based research, where you can really go to town. And it's just exciting to see people find what they're pumped about and how that relates to what they want to do long term. I think Amelia wants to be a guidance counselor, so she's jazzed about it. but you can tell I love my job, and I'd probably do it for free. I probably shouldn't say that while we're recording. But
Yes.
it's a good place. I get to meet with awesome students and work with Jonathan and Carling. So
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. You learn a lot of skills and a lot of experiences, which is really helpful for both the community and also your own self. Does anyone have any questions before we wrap it up? Any of the students? Not sure if you have any questions. I know it's always like, oh, do you have any questions?
well, there's only two of us too. It's so hard.
I
Thank you
know,
guys for
I know.
coming.
Yeah.
I guess once we get to campus, how do we become involved in all these clubs?
Great question.
Oh, I could answer that, Katie. My favorite.
Oops, I lost you. You're back. You're muted.
You're muted.
I was about to say my favorite afternoon of the semester. Right after orientation, on the Friday, usually the Friday of the first week of classes, you actually have, you're invited to the Involvement Expo. It's really exciting because all of these student leaders, the club leaders, even sometimes staff will come, and it's set up right on the beautiful quad. It's tables set up in kind of like a big circle, and it's a way to encourage first years and sophomores as well to get involved more. So every club and organization, fraternities, sororities, offices on campus will set up a table and will invite you to join the email list to get involved more. You can ask questions. It's typical for a lot of first years who want to be involved to sign up for too many emails, and then you'll get like 6 or 7 different emails that weekend from different organizations, and then you really can choose which ones to go to. I definitely went to a few too many my first few weeks, so definitely pick things that are really interesting to you. But it's also a great way to meet the student leaders and the staff and faculty that help these clubs and organizations. That way you can make a connection. I usually sit at a few different tables, so I won't meet you next year, but you'll meet some of my counterparts and my friends at different tables. The last few semesters, we've done it virtually, which is sad, but also really great way to continue involvement. So you'll see a lot of different things. Your first week or really 2 weeks are a little overwhelming just because you'll go through orientation and you start classes and you might miss home a little bit, but that's okay because everyone's going through that process. But I definitely recommend going to the Involvement Expo. Bring a friend, go with your roommate, go with someone from your FSEM. It's a really great way to do that and then get dinner. I've done that before. So yeah, that's a great way to get involved. If not, we have some web pages with information as well. But yeah, love the Involvement Expo. It's always so fun. There's a lot of free candy and a lot of good music.
We also have, as Carling mentioned, newsletters and whatnot. So the weekly buzz student activity sends out for campus life activities, movies, events on campus. I send out the Compass Times. Here's the March issue. April is hot off the press tomorrow. I'm sure students are excited to get their hot issue. But we break things up basically into short-term, long-term, postgraduate, things going on in the community. And so lots of different ways. And then of course, Instagram, pushing that out. Back in the day, Kate and I used Facebook. You guys are not on Facebook anymore. So we push it out in ways that are relevant to you guys.
Katie, you're aging us a little bit.
I'm sorry. You worked here in the last decade, just saying.
Can I just say something? I would also recommend just like taking your friends with you, your roommates, really like going to these places, to these like events and reaching out with other people so that way like more people get involved, but also you don't feel alone when you start like reaching out to people. I found that super helpful when I first started.
Yeah, definitely. I remember I went my first semester with some friends, and I think I signed up one of my friends on the field hockey team for a few different clubs. So it is what it is, but got to get involved somehow. So any last questions before we wrap up? I know you've been asking wonderful questions, you both, so thank you. Okay, well, we can wrap it up. That's all the time we have for today, but thank you both for joining us. And thank you all who have listened to this session. If you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We'll add our emails. Oh, yes, Katie added her email. If one of you doesn't mind typing in my email, maybe, just because I'm on my phone, unfortunately. But you can also reach out through your admissions council. I definitely recommend chatting with them. Great connection with campus. Kate, do you have anything else you want to add?
No, just
We're good?
congratulations.
Yes,
We're so excited about the possibility of you guys joining our community, and we know you're super zoomed out, so we really appreciate you joining us today, and definitely just be in touch if there's any other information you need as you make this decision.
Thank you,
Yes,
guys.
I agree.
Hang in there. It's not an easy time for you guys.
Yes,
Thank
good
you.
luck with your decision. Have a wonderful week.